Today's guest is Tadiwa Wazara. Tadiwa is a poet as well as a marketing expert with extensive experience in telecommunications and cybersecurity across Africa, Asia, and Europe. She is also the co-founder of Future People Collective, an organization with the mission to create spaces where community, imagination, and conversation come together. Her unique blend of marketing expertise and poetic insight lends itself to igniting creativity and sparking dialogue in communities to design a more connected world. Tadiwa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me. How exciting.
How are you doing?
I am good. I am not happy about the rain today, but I'm very good.
Yeah, it's not been great for my hair.
Yeah, same with my hair.
You know, you look great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time to come. And I'm really excited for this chat.
Me too.
So tell me a little bit about your early life. I know you were born in Zimbabwe and then lived all over the world.
Yeah, so I was born in Zimbabwe. And then when I was about 3 months old, we moved to Botswana because of my dad's job. And then after a couple of years, moved back to Zimbabwe, lived there for like a year or two, and then moved to Nigeria and then South Africa. Then I went to university in Scotland and then moved down to London after university.
What was that experience like moving around so much as you were growing up?
It was a bit mixed. It kind of gets you into this kind of expat living experience right off the bat because, and your concept of home is constantly evolving. It's about people more than places, what matters to you. Like everything's about what you can kind of carry in a suitcase. You know, there's not so much of a deep connection to specific places, but it also opens up your mind so much for culture, looking at I have so many different cultures that make up who I am and how I identify and what I'm proud of and the different elements of just my identity. So I feel like most third culture kids will tell you this, I don't know where home really is, but I feel that home is more about something that comes from within for me than it is a place that reinforces all of those elements.
Yeah. I had Ishita Kabra-Davis on the podcast and she said it gives you a really she calls it a global perspective.
Yeah.
Super global, but also very specific and local.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Because I think you start thinking globally because you're you might think something for a specific place, but then you know that there's somewhere else that has made you, that you feel that, oh, this could be more versatile. This could have more of an impact in one place or another place. It just...
Do you feel like it gives you a better understanding of people?
100%. I think that's how it kind of leans into things like poetry that I work on.
I was just going to say.
Just because I learned so much about people, learned so much about culture, learned so much about identity because mine was constantly being changed, being rattled by all the places that we were in. You sometimes have negative reactions, you have super positive reactions, but it really makes you understand how people work on an individual and a community basis. And it makes you really challenge, I guess, sometimes when I move to a specific place, for example, when I moved for university, having lived across Africa, I have this super Pan-African experience. Even though I went to an American school growing up, or a couple of American schools, I really have a strong African identity. Then I moved to the United Kingdom where, you speak English and you're like, oh yeah, I speak English, I'm totally going to fit in.
Yeah.
Was not the case for me. And it took a lot of time and cultural learning of what it meant to be English and what the English and, British, being in Scotland as well, what that identity looks like and how to insert myself. It was super challenging at the beginning because I kind of capture that in my poem, Immigrant Phone Home, where it's you kind of move to a place and you think that you're going to fit in and you're like, this is so exciting. I've been to England before. I had so many friends here. Then I moved here and I was like, no, you're not like us.
So when you were moving around Africa, what was your kind of understanding of race and culture at the time? I just want to get a better picture of how it changed. What you were.
Definitely. I became an immigrant when I first moved to Botswana because even when you start going to nursery school and you don't have the same language. Everyone was speaking Tswana. My family was speaking Shona and English. So already there as a child, people are like, you're a little bit different. And also Tswana people have a distinct way that they look. And we all looked different because we were from a different country. So it took time to also like really understand the otherness of identity because of the small nuances. Yeah, everyone's Black. A majority of like the sub-Saharan Africa is Black. But then you start to experience the lines that where cultural groups start to get super, super, super divided. So even moving to Nigeria again, like I actually had a reflection the other day when I was meditating, like just because I try and like catch all of my memories back. And like being a kid, going to school, and basically one time my mom picked me up from a friend's house and I was speaking French. And I was fluently speaking French. And I was like, my mom was like, what the heck? Like, and I was like, oh, mom, like, what do you mean? And I was speaking to my mom in French and she's like,
It's
what
like
the
it's
heck?
hard.
Yeah, like, this is just how we speak. And then my mom went to school and found out that when I started school, everyone was like, oh, you're not from the main groups. You're not Yoruba, you're not Igbo. So you go with the others. And those are the Congolese kids. So I was forced to speak French or learn French to cope as a child. Must have been like 7 or 8 years old because that I was othered already. And then I guess kind of experiencing the nuances of different cultural groups within Africa really diversified my understanding of what race meant, how identity is I guess constructed.
Yeah.
On top of that, like I'm a Black Jew, like that's my heritage, even though not everyone in my family practices Judaism. I don't personally, but like already knowing that the lineage is already not necessarily directly from Zimbabwe, not directly being 100% Black, then changes the way that you start, like it's changed the way from a young age how I perceived race. I started like as you start to learn why people think of you as different or push you to be different, you start to think, at what point do I become different? And I, in true like logical mindedness, I decided that race was something that was like illogical to me. So I think of all racism, any conversations about race, obviously it has impact on people and it's a real experience in life, but the actual basis of the principle of race is illogical. And that idea further got reinforced when I moved to the UK.
Yeah.
Because for me, living around Africa, I got to see so much of Africa. So being African has nothing to do with race. I think you also mentioned that your heritage is also partially from
Indian. Yeah, my dad grew up in Africa, in Tanzania.
Yeah. And I mean, for you, there's definitely going to be things that you have on a cultural level because of that.
Yes. Yes, it's true. The Indian community in Tanzania, in East Africa, is very different culturally to the Indian community from India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. And if we looked at it under the lens of race, are you less Indian? Are you more Indian? And I think those
I see what you mean.
Yeah. In that respect, in my mind, I'm like, that's African culture because your dad would have had an experience of 100% being in Africa, growing up this where his values got molded and shaped and experienced. And then for that to be removed from somebody because of something like race, it makes no sense to me. And like, again, now moving onward to, I guess, let me finish one thought. Being Black and being African became two separate identities for me. Yeah. Because of the way that I grew up and how I grew up in the different spaces. Yeah, a lot of people can look like me, but a lot of people don't have to look like me for them to be an African and identify with as an African. And then I moved to the UK as an adult. Well, I was 17. I started university in Scotland.
What was that like?
So my family, I had quite a privileged background. We'd spend summers like around the world. So like we'd spend summer holiday in like Australia or coming to England or going to China, like spending a lot of time in places. So I was quite familiar with the UK. But then going to university was a really kind of shocking experience because especially being in Aberdeen. I mean, I really like the city as a student city, but being there where there weren't necessarily a lot of other Black people and having Black people there, especially Afro-Caribbean British culture. Like, I think there's a very distinct Afro-Caribbean British culture which can be celebrated. But then because I didn't acclimatize or fit into that part of community, I really felt segregated.
Again, like what that experience of being with the others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're Black and I have an intolerance to chicken, rice, and potatoes. And people will be like, you're Black, but you don't eat chicken. You're Black and you don't do this. And all these things, I'm like, I'm Black and because of my growing up, my upbringing. And, I've seen so many different kinds of versions of what a Black person can look like. And then I was really funneled into one here. And like I found it quite destabilizing at the beginning. And I just kind of had this approach of like, okay, let me just stay away from everybody who's got that idea of me. Or, some people being like, oh, you don't like hip hop or you don't listen to grime. I'm like, I grew up in Southern Africa. Let's listen to some Afro house or something like that. But it just took a little bit of time to get to the point of like, and it came a lot through friendship, where I had a lot of friends who were allies at that time, which I didn't even realize I was part of a group of people that needed allies. But every single group needs allies. But I then discovered like other people advocating on my behalf, like, why are you asking her that? Are you asking her that because she's Black? And like having all of those experiences kind of dissected until I now have gotten to more established places, like as a grown woman. And I say woman in the sense that like I feel confident in standing up in who I am versus a girl who's like still a little bit more malleable. And having that transition from girl to woman in that environment, I feel quite confident in standing up and saying, being Black, being African, all these different elements of my identity, you're giving me those labels because that's how you need to process who I am.
Yeah.
And I can process who I am and I can share who I am comfortably without needing people's labels. And some people do need those labels, and it's okay if they do. I can hand that over to them. But when I look at me, I just see myself as Tadiwanashe, and I have so many stories that have happened and I've experienced things. I see those people with more, I have compassion for them because I'm like, it's ignorance. You haven't been to the places I've been, you haven't seen the places I've seen, experienced the things that I've experienced, and your life is no, not life, but your experience is so small compared to my experience. So I don't need to start trying to justify myself to these people.
That's incredible, because I think one of the things that Kat Joy White was talking about, and she talks about in her book, is that sometimes when we're faced with a lot of stereotyping, we try and make ourselves palatable or like conform. And there's also a lot of pressure, right, for women of color, Black women, of being the first in certain spaces. And so there's no room for error. So not only are you trying to contort yourself into fitting these boxes because you know that that's how the world understands you, or the society, this particular society might understand you, you're also, there's no room for error, there's no room for failure. And then what ultimately ends up happening is burnout or, worse, because it's just exhausting. And so the fact that you reject any kind of label or categorization is incredible and just the way it should be. I wonder how much of that is probably on account of the fact that you grew up all over and kind of experienced categorization so many times that you realized actually this has no meaning. Like when I move here, they try and change the way they change the boxes. And so if I'm in this box here and this box here, and there's actually no box.
Exactly.
The limit does not exist, to quote Mean Girls. But like, I love that. And I love that you have that at such a young age. Like it's something I feel like is so hard won by so many women. And to have it now is such a gift.
That 100% resonates. Like I couldn't agree more, because especially now, I've just recently moved to Barcelona, and I've like gone to so many international schools, learned how to speak Spanish. And I'm like, I speak Spanish. Like, not that great, but I speak Spanish in my head. And then you start speaking to people in Barcelona and then they're like, oh, you have a Colombian accent. I'm like,
Oh, it's
wait,
like
what?
North Catalan.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And then
yeah.
you now find yourself, and then people have all these preconceptions about Colombian people that they're now putting onto you. And I'm like, hang on, I've never even been to Colombia. I would want to go if you want to take me on a trip, but I've never been there.
Yeah.
Now I'm experiencing the discrimination that
I'm just trying to learn the language.
Yeah, I'm just trying to speak. Like, and for me, that's kind of why it's like all of these isms and like xenophobia, racism, all of these things. I'm just kind of like, the basis of this doesn't make sense because it means something to everybody separately. And it's not my job to now figure out where you lay on this spectrum.
Make it comfortable for you. It's not my job. Yeah.
I'll leave it over to you to figure out how you want to discriminate me while I will continue living my life. Thank you. Like,
yeah. Gosh, that's amazing. Hi, everyone. Just a short break to say thank you so much for listening to the episode. I hope you're enjoying it. If you are, please do hit the follow button. It means so much to me and really makes a difference to a new podcast like this one. Also, I would love if you could leave a rating and a review. When you're creating in a vacuum, it's not always apparent whether the episodes are resonating or not, and that's why your feedback is so important to me. It means that I can actually put out episodes that you want and will enjoy. Thanks so much. Back to the episode. Tell me about being a poet. So this I love because you come from a corporate background, and I'm always intrigued by people that kind of have had a pivot or a shift. And I'm always interested in learning how that came about, first of all, and when that shift happened. Were you always a poet? Did you always write poetry?
So the short answer is no. I was not always a poet and I didn't always write poetry, but I did quite enjoy writing. But one of the biggest inhibitors is like I have one of the most severe kinds of dyslexia you can have. And so reading, writing was always just like a place of anxiety and stress. So I would just jot things down. And I have all of my journals from when I was a teenager. I recently actually reread them. And that girl, I would not be friends with her. But that girl became me.
We love her.
Exactly.
We accept her.
We love that girl. So like it was always a place of like anxiety and stress and like especially moving around everywhere you go, people being like, oh, you're down, blah, blah, blah. And not actually, like my reading ability now is like of an 8-year-old, but I have a super high IQ, which counteracts that. Or my brain has figured out how to work around it. So for me, it was always like a place of fear and stress and anxiety. But then I entered the corporate world. I worked in marketing for telecoms companies. And I mean, and I was working for one of Africa's largest companies at the time. And it was, no one cares. Get the work done. So in that way, it gave me a lot of confidence from a writing perspective. And then over time, I had a manager he was an amazing writer, and he would be like, blah, 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 or like come into work and just like write all. And I was like, I really want to be able to like have that skill, but I'm really scared to be able to write. So I had a friend. This is why it's always important to have amazing friends that always advocate and support you. At the time, I had a really bad breakup. And I have a friend who's an amazing writer, and she would be like, have like, you know, these like conceptual people who's like, oh, wow, the universe that's inside this cup of coffee.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes. I love those people.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
I love her. And she writes a book every year. And she said to me, hey, like, I know you're going through your heartbreak. Do you want to like write a book or something? And I was like, that's super crazy. Fine. And I had no internet at my apartment that I moved to in my heartbreak because it was on the seaside. And so no internet meant so much time to focus. And I just wrote everything about my heartbreak. And then as I wrote it all out, I then went to my friend and I showed her what I written. She was like, this is really good. Like, maybe you should like make it into something. And I was like, I would want to make it into something, but I don't want it to be all about the stupid boy. So I was like, let me make it about all the stupid boys. And I interviewed my exes about what it was like dating me.
Sorry, what? 1 second. You interviewed your exes.
Yeah.
First of all, That's really brave. Tell me why you decided to do that. Just from like why would you do that to yourself way?
Yeah, I think it's just because I'm more like, my perspective cannot be the only perspective.
That's really mature of you.
And if I want to grow past this heartbreak, let me understand what it was, what were the building blocks to make this story. So it was like a 10-year frame. I interviewed everyone I dated from when I was 18 to 28.
Wow.
And was like, 17 to 27, that age gap. And I was just like, who was I as a romantic person, as a woman? Like, what is this romantic story? So I know my side and how I've told the story, but I need to hear the full story also takes the other person's perspective. So I just was like, hey, like, thankfully I had a good rapport with them.
Oh, that's good.
Well,
that's
not
great.
The best rapport, but good enough for them to be open to talk to me about what I was like as a lover, as a partner.
Yeah.
And that gave me a lot of like reflection of like, oh, okay, I thought I was doing this right, or I wasn't actually doing this. And a lot of them had the same themes and things that I was like, oh, okay, I should work on those things. But it gave me a lot of perspective, and putting it into the format of poetry made it a little bit more tangible, because it was like, if I had to write something huge, it would be overwhelming. Let me just condense it and condense everything that they say, and write condensed expressions of these deep emotions.
Did you notice the shift over that 10-year period in yourself through any of their...
Yeah, I saw where I grew and I saw where I didn't. Yeah. And that is not an easy thing. But I was also like, I opened this Pandora's box, so I need to be ready to take whatever's come from this.
It's weirdly a gift to see that through someone else's eyes that knew you intimately.
Yeah, I mean, I think I tell people my superpower on my CV when I had to do cover letters. My superpower is like taking big complex ideas and making them super simple. And I feel like poetry is just an expression of that. These big complicated feelings, and then writing them in few words. Like, I love novelists because they can like tell this amazing story and have amazing pictures. But I was like, that's also not me. And then as I started writing this piece, I was more like the book, I was like, wow, like all the love poems are these like old white dudes that are usually dead. And there's no one telling this story of like a young modern woman of color, immigrant, Black from Africa, having all of these experiences. And I know that I'm not the only person who hits all of those like, I guess.
Boxes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the leap that got me into poetry. And then I started posting some on Instagram, and people liked it. And I was able to talk with people and connect with people. And then at that point, I was not calling myself a poet, because what is that?
Yes. So tell me about that. Like, why were you not calling yourself a poet if you had written poetry?
I feel like similar to a situationship, when it has a name, it becomes real.
Yeah.
So it's easy to stay in this gray space because you don't have to step up to the responsibility that's there.
Yeah.
And because it's this, like, at the time I was like working in a finance firm, like I had like 4 promotions in 1 year. I was like, I was traveling the world as a digital nomad. I had like all of these, like, I'm like the best version of myself. I'm like the apex Tad. And like, for me to be like,
can't reconcile the two.
Yeah, it was so hard. And it was only when another friend came to me and was like, hey, I'm starting like a creative agency. I was looking for different talents. I want to put you on as a poet. And I was like, what? Who? Me?
Yeah.
And then she was like, yeah, I think what you do is poetry. And I was like, no, I just like write stuff. And she was like, you write stuff that is called a poem. And again,
great friend. Yeah.
Exactly. Friends make everything even more. It makes the journey like not feel as tough.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of how I became a poet, or started identifying as a poet. And it's only been like this year when I stopped working formally. Mm-hmm. And when moving to Barcelona, part of that, it was like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a poet. And my heart was like, why did I say that?
Yeah.
But it's the truth. And that's what I do. And now I perform as well. That was, again, another friend that was like, because at the time I was like, I hate the sound of my own voice. I'll never, ever, 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 ever perform.
You have a gorgeous voice, Dad.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I think it's very deep, and that's what freaked me out.
Stunning.
It's not very, again, feminine in my head. I was like, oh, I always sound like a man when I hear myself play back. But again, part of embracing yourself is accepting the things that don't necessarily fall into the categories of other people, and actually just, I can't, if I stop talking,
Yeah.
my voice is not going to change, you know?
Did you get, so I know that you have a book deal. What was that process like from like writing poetry and performing it and then getting a book deal? How did that happen?
So going back to the friend at the seaside, she was like, submit a manuscript. And then I just typed in poetry publishers, submitted it to the first person.
I love that.
And
Like
then
without
they were
overthinking
like,
it.
we want to publish this. I was like, oh my gosh. I've now, like, it's really embarrassing to say out loud, but it's just the truth. I just feel so exposed at the fact that I'm still single and I have literally a book of all of my dirty laundry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I do want to have a partner, but I don't want them to like read about me in such a vulnerable space. So I always have this like,
Let's flip it. And actually, if they read it, they'll know you better.
ooh.
They'll know you better
wow.
and they'll know how to love you better.
Mm.
And you also don't want someone that wouldn't want to read that and wouldn't want to know you better, if that makes sense.
That's actually such a good,
Being really specific is the way you attract the right person.
I love this. I think you've just changed the whole marketing campaign in my head.
Yeah, it's like I want people that are going to want to read it.
Yeah.
To know me better.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to get this book published like today.
Yes. That's lovely though. I love how
Yeah.
that just happened organically for you. I think when something is meant to be,
Yeah.
it just kind of happens and you kind of have no control over it, and the universe is sort of conspiring to give it to you.
Yeah, 100%. Like I was talking this morning with my little brother about purpose and why purpose is so important to drive us and help us with maintaining our mental health, our physical health, our well-being.
Yeah.
And if you don't have at least a little piece of purpose, you don't see the full picture, but if you start moving towards it, it will present itself.
Yeah.
And we don't really know what the path is always going to be, but we're going to get to where the end is, and that's where our purpose is. So I think 100% of what you're saying right there, like our purpose, sorry, not just our purpose, but like where we're meant to go and how it's meant to happen. When we start leaning towards it, it's just going to present itself, and the universe is going to conspire for our favor.
When you perform, because I've seen I've seen some videos of you performing, and it's just such a sensory experience. How does that feel to you, like performing your poetry? What is that experience like?
So it's really emotional from my perspective, just because one, like the actual sharing of your words, it becomes real when they start, when you speak it. And having these words for so long just be like flat in either notebook or in my notes app, and then saying it and then seeing it how it connects with people is very empowering as a storyteller. Like I've had so many performances where people cried or came to me afterwards, and that was not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah.
And even having music as part of the performances was a decision, because my friend was like, I need an act. Can you perform? And I was like, "Roar." And then she was like, I'm not going to listen to anything you have to say. You have to just do it. And me kind of like digging deep into myself, like, okay, if I wanted to see myself as a poet, what would I do? And I reached out to my friend who's like a Broadway actor. I was like, hey, can we do like coaching lessons online? Because she lives in New York. And she was like, yeah, 100%. I reached out, like I basically studied music when I was in high school because of a boy signed me up for that class. And then I was like tied into 2 years of music. And a lot of the people that I studied with went on to be like at Juilliard and all of these amazing institutions. So I just posted on Instagram like, hey guys, does anyone want to like collaborate? Because I have a performance coming up. And I'd love somebody to make music to accompany my performance. And I then had like a bunch of people then reach out to me and write different compositions. I'd send a voice note and then I'd get a musical masterpiece back. And that entire experience then started to shape my storytelling
Yeah.
and shape my poetry performance. And I think the way that music has played a role, because me directly, I'm not a musician. I am trained as an opera singer, but I've not used that skill for a long time. But being able to combine music and storytelling, I loved it. And I shared it with people. Then all of a sudden I realized like, oh, why does this feel so grounding and so emotional? And then I realized that's what we do in my culture. And in all of these different African countries I was living in as a child, there's always these like storytelling, or when my family get together, people are telling stories and there's like a drum going. It's a little bit more of a percussive culture, but we have a drum going. When I'm with my family, or my mom loves singing and music. So when I'm with my siblings, I have 5 siblings. When we're all together, someone's on the piano, someone's on the guitar, someone's on the drums, and people are singing and doing harmonies and all of these things. And it's like, oh, that's me. This is a reflection of who I am, and I feel grounded.
Yeah, that ancestral like
power. Yeah.
The female experience, womanhood, is very much, I think, a theme that runs through some of your poetry.
Yes.
Specifically kind of the non-conforming woman. And this kind of idea of a woman coming into her own, or the becoming of a woman. I want to explore that a bit more with you, because I definitely think that there's this like reckoning that happens for many women as when they become aware of societal conditioning or the structures that have been placed on them. I'd love for you to read a little bit from your poem, Divine Disobedience, if you wouldn't mind, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so this is the last section of my poem, Divine Disobedience. To be myself is divine disobedience, a rebellion against the silence, a reclamation of epic loves they tried to bury. I am the storm, the seed, the song, the woman who honors herself, who stands beyond what they told her to be. I am the wildfire that cannot be contained. I am the garden that grows wild and free. In my being, I rewrite the world, a testament bold and free. For to be myself is to disobey, and my disobedience is divinity.
It's so powerful.
Thank you.
What made you want to write that poem? Is that disobedience something that you were starting to experience?
Yes. So earlier this year, I did a show with a friend, and we were trying to come up with a theme. And I thought about the topic and the theme of divine disobedience as being like the epicenter of like every single woman that disobeys, not even as a bad woman or a violent woman or anything like that. Every woman that disobeys, at the core of the disobedience is her choosing herself. And we all want to be ourselves. There's so much societal pressure that's on us across the board. And the thing is, like, a disobedient person also is just somebody who's not listening to what they're told to do.
Yeah.
And I think that as a woman, I don't want to really be a woman that, I don't know, I want to be a woman who can constantly be myself and be proud of myself and feel beautiful and powerful because I am who I'm meant to be. And that's kind of where the role of divinity comes in, because the divinity usually is like contained as like, oh, super angelic, maybe like an interpretation of like, just like, she's so like, she's perfect. She's so pure.
Yeah.
But if you're divine, if you're disobedient and divine, it means that you're perfect and pure, but then you're also going to be yourself and not care what other people have to say. So that's kind of the epicenter of divine disobedience for me, and kind of the thing that allowed this poem to exist. I did, for the performance, I actually started completely off the stage. And I collaborated with a professional dancer called Zhao. She's amazing. And she's a pole dancer. And I asked, like, requested, like, can you do a dance to that pole?
Oh,
And yeah, Zhao did an amazing performance that represented femininity and just beautiful. She wore all white and did a striptease in all white. And everybody felt empowered and just loved and celebrated afterwards. Zhao was crying. I was
oh,
trying not to cry.
yeah.
It was an amazing performance. And just collaborating with another woman was just so empowering.
What does honoring yourself mean to you? Because there's a line in there, a woman who honors herself. And there are some words that always, you just have an affinity to. And I think honor is one of those for me.
Hmm.
So I'm curious to know what honoring yourself means.
I think for me, honoring yourself is to an extent someone who can put themselves first.
Mm.
I recently read Bell Hooks' book Salvation
Yeah.
called Salvation, Black People in Love. And there's like a whole chapter specifically. I mean, she talks about it from a race perspective, but this I think it applies especially across the board for so many cultures of women. Like there's like this like martyr of like the woman who doesn't take care of herself and she like is really run down and doesn't have a moment for herself or won't eat because other people need to eat or doesn't take care of herself. And she's like, there's no glory in any of that.
Mm.
There's no respect in that because you don't love yourself actually.
Yeah.
Like and loving yourself means that you're in the room. You are a priority in your list of priorities. And I think that it's hard because women aren't taught that. Young girls aren't taught that. You help somebody else. You should share. You should do this. You should do all of these things, but also have yourself as somebody who's in that equation,
And
not the last person who's thought of. Even looking at something like motherhood, because it's a theme that I've been exploring. My sister has had a baby recently, and I've been like auntie mode. But in my culture, I'm called mom for the baby that my
Yes.
sister's had. So I'm like, I'm a mom now.
No, but I love that. I love that you can. There's such an acceptance around being a mother figure
Mm.
in certain cultures.
Yeah.
There's no distinction. Like it's a village.
Exactly.
And you're all mothers.
Exactly. Like my mom and her best friends, I call them all mom. And my aunts, I call them all mom. Even now as an adult, I'm like, oh, mom. So that my mom lives on the other side of the world. Even when she's not there, I went to my aunt's house last week. I was like, oh, mom.
Oh.
And like having that kind of peace. And like I try and think of like, oh, what does motherhood look like? It's like, oh, actually, if a child realizes that their mom loves them, but their mom also loves themselves.
Yeah.
That is going to breed an amazing child. Mom has priorities that are not just you. Like as looking at a child, like, so my nephew, obviously not being like negligent or anything, but like, yeah, if my nephew's like over there and he's crying a bit, I'm like, you can just like wait 2 seconds for me to sort what I need to do and then go back. And my sister, I've seen her do that in a way that she's been able to start her own work, start her own opportunities. Like she has an amazing supportive partner, and I know that makes a difference for a lot of women. But her even reaching out to me as a sister, being like, "I have this work opportunity on this date. I need to travel." I'll be like, "Okay, come. Let me come and take the baby," because now the baby is now learning I'm not the most important thing in my mom's life. I am an important thing, but my mom taking care of herself means that I also get I benefit from being taken care of there. And I think, yeah, just looking at a woman that honors herself, it can come across anyway. Like you can't be the person who's always with your friend group. You're the one who's doing everything and no one's doing anything for you. That doesn't work.
No.
Even with your parents, any relationship in your life, you still have to stand up for yourself and take care of yourself and honor yourself before you take any other responsibilities on. It's easy to say on a podcast.
Yeah. No, I know, but it's such a hard practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. As I was doing my research, Tad, I learned that when you were 20, you had a slightly scary episode, a bit of a health journey. And I wondered if it would be okay for you to tell us a bit about that experience.
Yeah, sure. So I basically had an experience where I always had like a lot of back pain in general, and you just kind of ignore it. You're like, oh, let me ignore that. And then one day I woke up and I couldn't walk. And that was really shocking. And I went to the doctor. I was like, oh, my leg is kind of, I don't know what's going on. And everyone was like, what? We don't really know what's going on a wait list. Critical conditioning getting worse and worse and worse. And, everyone was doing scans and x-rays, MRI, every single scan you can imagine. And looking at me and then being like, there's nothing that we can see wrong with you. I went to like the top world pain specialist. He was like, he's like, I could open you up and poke about, but I don't have any reason to open you up from how your scans are looking. He's like, if I put you next to somebody exact same age as you, you wouldn't have, like, there would be no reason for me to make any kind of incisions. And it was such a scary experience because no doctors, no experts could tell me what was going on. I was on crutches for 6 months, literally just dragging myself up and like trying to have mental resilience, trying to continue with my life. And
So you couldn't walk this for 6 months?
yeah, I couldn't walk. I was basically bedbound. I mean,
you didn't know that it was going to end. It was just like this.
It was ongoing and I was in chronic pain. So like imagine like even going to the toilet was horrible. Going to work was horrible. I mean, I look at it now kind of as a blessing because I've been like a remote worker since 2018 because of it.
You got ahead of the curve.
Yeah, exactly. But it just was such a really difficult thing because, something that made me realize, something that I didn't realize until it happened and I had an experience of being disabled was everyone says, what happened? And then every time you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just woke up and it doesn't, okay, well, I hope it doesn't happen to your other leg. I don't, and then it's like all this anxiety happening from other people. And it was a real, real test. I was on painkillers for like unforeseeable future. And I had to eventually, I was actually out there the other day by the Royal Chelsea, the Royal Flower Show. I had to learn how to walk again using hydrotherapy. So they put me in a contraption, put me in the water, and then I'd try and learn to walk again. They didn't know if I'd walk again. They didn't know why I stopped. Like, it was such an anxiety-inducing experience.
Yeah,
but
I bet.
Off the back of that, there's nothing like a really horrible situation to give you extreme body positivity. But from then on, I just loved everything about myself in a way that, before it's like, oh, my leg looks like this or this. Now I'm like, my leg can walk. I can go up a step. I can skip 2 steps. And like, it's just giving me so much like celebration for my body. Yeah, it might look something weird, but it works.
Yeah.
I can learning to walk again is such a humbling experience, especially as an adult. But I think it was a situation that gave me a lot of resilience and gave me a lot of compassion for other people.
I was just going to say, does it change the way you view the world?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Especially even thinking about like especially because I was fully able for 22 years, I think. It happened when I was 22. I was fully abled, and not having that anymore gave me so much more compassion for people who are disabled. I know that I had it before, but it became so much more clear front of mind. Navigating the world, like, I mean, I was still traveling. I had all these trips booked anyway, so I was like still traveling as a disabled person around the world.
Gosh.
Like, I went to Russia. My work sent me to Congo. Like, all of these things were happening, and it just gave me so much more compassion to be like, how to love your body, what healing actually looks like. Because before I'd be like, oh yeah, like, let me just like, it'll be fine. Let me just do a stretch. Or like, I didn't take healing properly. And I think I've been able to transfer that healing into also emotional healing. Because I would do something like there'd be 2 days that my leg's working great and I'll be like, yeah. And then 3 days of, girl, sit down. And I'd be like, I want to go do this. And mentally and emotionally, I started I constantly am trying to look for ways to improve myself, just out of self-love. And even having emotional scars, knowing like, oh, I feel better today, but actually I don't feel that good today. If this was when I was having this experience in my physical body, this is what the healing process looked like. So now emotionally, I need to give myself that same grace and compassion that, okay, I might feel really great one day, but then it's okay to feel like there's a regression, or if I'm triggered with something, it's fine.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I will be able to walk again emotionally in whatever the situation is, but I don't have to rush myself to get to that point.
That's gorgeous. I love that. I mean, obviously it's a harrowing experience, but I love that you got so much out of it.
Thank you.
I don't know if you are spiritual, but like, I know that when I've had dark moments, my faith has kind of really kept me going. And usually during periods of uncertainty, like having that as a kind of constant presence has been really affirming. Is that something that helped you get through that time?
100%.
Yeah.
So I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
And my faith has become more and more an invaluable part of who my identity is and how I choose to show up in the world, and what guides me to talk with some people and how I connect with other people. I think that I was thinking about it. I was like, a few years ago, I decided if my friend doesn't have any faith, I won't be friends with them. So, and not just like Christian faith. I've lived around the world. I've learned about so many different faiths. I see the value of all of them. I just choose to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And I made a conscious effort to say, if my friend doesn't believe in anything, that actually is going to hurt me more. Because if I now have a situation like, oh, I can't walk, and I'm like, oh, I need to just, I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to stay like consistent in my
Hopeful,
faith.
yeah.
This is where my hope comes from. Having friends who are like, well, don't believe in God, or, there's nothing out there that's going to help you. You just need to do, and it's like, my body is literally broken. There's no one I have a very medical background in my family. Like, science is not working. Medicine is not working. I actually need to have faith in this moment. And having friends who are like, no, it just breaks your hope.
Yeah.
It breaks you down. And I think for me, it's like, if you want to exist, especially if you want to do anything creative, there's a spiritual element of all of it. I used to do Indian music lessons. Yeah, when I was younger. Yeah.
Like classical music?
Classical traditional Indian music. And I loved it. And I did voice. And my Shiva would always tell me, like, the most important thing about anything to do with creativity is knowing that it is an act of worship.
Yes.
And I feel that a lot of creative people who don't have any faith, or there's nothing spiritual about them, or just people in general, if you don't have anywhere that your hope comes from or that your hope is directed to, it feels quite lonely and isolating, and it gets really, really difficult to just exist. And for me, I always feel so sympathetic for people, especially right now, because the world is crazy.
Yes.
If you don't believe in anything, it will break you. Again, going to the leaning back to purpose. Like, if there's no thing that that's bigger than you, and you put so much responsibility on yourself, that's not a way to exist. That's not a sustainable way to find love. Like, there's no reference for how you love. There's no reference for how you exist.
That's what makes things dark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Way darker, way faster.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm not saying that. I just
to
think,
each their own, but
yeah,
it's just, yes, I understand what you're saying.
believe in something.
Yeah.
That's not just yourself.
Yeah. No, I know. I understand that. I understand that. And
Yeah.
I think I'd be lost so many times if I hadn't had faith. Super, super important.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think it's so important, especially because it's like you can actually feel like, when you have a feeling of something like, oh, maybe I should do this, or oh, that person looks like they need help. Like, we are all connected.
Yeah.
It's quite painful, a painful experience if you don't believe that there's no connection, or we're not aware, or there's a reason why when you take your shoes off and you put your feet on grass or sand, you feel immediate relief.
Yes.
And that's because everything is connected. And people who don't have that, I'm like,
there's just magic in the world.
100%.
Yeah. 100%. And I mean, I asked that question because the way you were kind of telling the story about your experience and then the recovery, you weren't making it about yourself. So it felt like
Mm.
you were drawing upon something else there. So I
Mm.
felt like there was maybe something else that got you through it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely my faith. Yeah.
Tell me about Future People Collective. What made you want to create it?
My new baby.
Yeah.
Basically, Future People Collective, just for listeners. It feels weird saying that, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
listeners.
basically
It feels weird to me too.
yeah, I'm like,
Listeners.
okay, you're listening
Yeah.
in. Um, yeah, Future People Collective is basically a collective that I started with a friend. And we basically look at bridging the gap between future systems and the current ones that we have. And the tools that we choose to use are creativity. Basically, I'm Zimbabwean, as you guys know, and my co-founder is Argentinian. And we both grew up in our own cultures and then kind of moved to the Western world as we were going to university, then kind of got into the working world and had different experiences and kind of learned that our cultures weren't necessarily as not to say valid, but there was a kind of a gap in the way that people saw our cultures and how we showed up in the day because they felt like a lot of the insights and learnings only came from us being in the Western world. So we kind of thought of how can we elevate the experience and share knowledge from different cultures. And we thought creativity. So I'm a poet and my co-founder is one of the head designers for one of like the biggest design companies in the world. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what the name of the company is, or Adidas. And she's like a massive cultural influencer. All these things that you can see around the world, like design elements you can see around the world, she was a direct person as part of those projects.
Wow.
And I've had my storytelling, I have all of the marketing experience, especially like tech and finance marketing around the world. We were like, we can make these things more appealing to people and teach people in a way that's not got a political agenda tied to it. We can just bring things to the forefront of people's minds and learn and bring the insights from our cultures forward. So we look at different themes that are universal truths and we get different people's perspectives. So, for example, we recently had an event in Berlin where we looked at the future of sleep and looked at sleep as a concept. And we partnered with a South Asian organization that looked at, traditional ways of getting to sleep in South Asian cultures. So using sesame oil and made a food installation off of it, off of melatonin-rich foods. We had panel discussions from people from top AI companies in the world speaking about kind of how sleep is different from, sleep is the only differentiating factor for us from technology. And looking at all of these different, having a conversation about why sleep is important for us as humanity, especially these are from like tech geniuses and tech pioneers, and from like psychologists. And we also had an AI strategist speaking there and getting all of these people's perspective on something that every single human being does on a daily basis around the whole planet. That's the universal element of it. And just bringing those insights to a place where people could share it.
Yeah.
And what was really amazing at the event, because neither one of us lived in Berlin at the time, we just run some ads and the amazing people that ended up coming,
Oh,
like
wow.
just someone was like, oh, like I have like they got 4 beds and pushed them together so that they could have a place for like when their friends come over, just like sleep on the same bed or lay in the same bed together. And then you now start doing research like people like slept in a group of people would sleep in a bed up until like the early 1900s. It was only when like consumerism came in when they were like everyone should have their own bed to try and push mattress sales. But actually sleeping in a bed with a lot of people, like, there's all these scientific benefits, like cuddling helps you like with your mental health. It helps you with your, what is this thing called? Serotonin, all of these different things in your body just because you're sleeping next to somebody else. So we were like, you don't have to do anything. You could be super rich. You could have literally no material goods, but you could just sleep and share the experience of sleep. So we look at different themes around those things. We're now looking at remembering. We're looking at doing some events in Ghana and Buenos Aires later on in the year. So like hopefully that will become something that connects more people and more people want to be part of the Future People Collective.
That sounds so intriguing. I'm
Thank
so excited for
you.
what you guys do next.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's future people.
Yeah. Of all the poems that you've written, which one is the closest to your heart and why?
That's a hard one. Written in general or written and shared publicly?
Ooh. Well, written
Okay.
in general, but then I don't know if you would feel comfortable telling me about it if you haven't shared it.
I think they're like, okay, so two poems that I really love. One of them was the basis of what divine disobedience was. And basically, I don't have the best relationship with my grandmother. And her and I think a lot of people say we're similar. That's why we clash a lot. Is an amazing woman. She is like epitome of badass, like had this amazing life and was like a freedom fighter, and she was like a nurse, and she like used to like she unfortunately was like one of the first people to get divorced in Zimbabwe, so she was like the first divorcee woman, and she'd wear mini skirts, and she was
Kind of
just like
cool.
yeah, exactly, a
Yeah.
disobedient woman, because she was like
Yes.
she has this thing that she always says, like, early bird catches the worm, who wants a worm anyway? Like she said it when she was in preschool, and she's like, that's her attitude. And I wrote this poem just firstly being like, I know that I'm a disobedient woman and I break the rules because it's in my blood. And it was kind of like a poem that I wrote to be like to her, like, you and I might not see eye to eye on everything, but I love you so much. And I am the person that I am because of all of the decisions that you made in your life. And so that's one of my favorite poems that I look at, and I read Divine Disobedience. I'm like, this is my grandma.
I love that. You're honoring yourself, but also her.
Exactly. And yeah, just like that one is one of my favorites. And then another one is that I had the privilege of performing at South Bank Center is called Immigrant Phone Home. And that's like kind of it's quite a confrontational one, but I talk about basically like the xenophobic racist experience that I had moving to the UK. And even though like there's like a line that I have, like, unsavory nods to slavery by people who look like me. Where can I be me? How do I be me? And like, I think it's kind of like this cry. I think that's the poem that makes a lot of people cry, especially like a lot of South Africans that hear my poems, me having lived in South Africa for 10 years and like really having a base and a home there. But like racism in South Africa versus racism here is completely different. And like just a lot of immigrants that move here, they feel like, oh, I'm going to go to England, I'm going to have a great time. And then they get here and then people like, get out of our country. And like, it's just kind of like a summary of the experience that I had, like being in Scotland during the Scottish referendum when they're like, get everybody out. And then literally like a year later moving to London and then having to go through the Brexit vote where people would be like, don't worry, you're going to be leaving my country soon. I'm like, I'm not European. I don't think you understand how this whole thing's working. But like having all of those experiences all together, like summarized in that poem, I feel like that one is really like I even did a performance recently with the double bassist, and saying the words really made me cry. Like I got choked up during the performance, and I felt the crowd like kind of catch their breath a bit. But it's just like every time I say those words, I'm like, because it kind of starts off as a story of someone who's leaving out of excitement and then is broken down, but then the resolve of this, and because you're an alien, essentially, like E.T. wants to go home, you phone home. And I'm phoning my parents, phoning my family, remembering who you are is where that poem really lives and the space that it takes up. And that's what, like that for me, from a performance perspective, is my favorite poem.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Tadiwa.
Oh, thank you so much for asking that. I've never been asked that.
And then finally, what is a piece of art, a book, a film, a poem that you think the world should read? Or me, that I should read if the world is too big for...
Oh, that's such a hard one. I think, not to be cliche, but I do write about love and relationships. All About Love by Bell Hooks.
Yes, that's a great shout. That's a great book.
I think that book has saved me so many conversations, given me so much understanding. it is like the epitome of grace. And it's written in a way that is still very tangible. Because at the end of the day, all we want is to have love, to share love, and to receive it. Like, we just want love at the end of the day. And we're having to interact with people who are in different spectrums of where that love lives and exists. And yeah, I think that's
And
the book.
capabilities of receiving love. is also
Exactly.
different. Yeah.
And on a individualistic level, a communal level, on a societal level, a political level, religious level, it really breaks everything down. Even our relationship with our parents, with our siblings. That's definitely something that I would recommend for people to explore. And yeah.
Great. That's a great recommendation.
Yeah. What about you? What would you recommend?
Oh gosh, I haven't thought about this. I have to come ready to answer my own questions. What would I recommend? I mean, I have read The Artist's Way a few times, and every time I read it, it's different for me. But I think that that's probably one of the books that's probably had most impact on my life in terms of even like this podcast might not, might not be a reality if I hadn't read that book. So probably The Artist's Way
I
by
love
Julia
that.
Cameron. Yeah.
I love that.
Is there anything, we have time, anything that you want to say that I might not have covered, or just anything in general that you want to say as we wrap the episode up?
I think, I mean, a thought that I had on my way here. It's raining in London. If for anybody who's unfamiliar with that experience, it's not as great. But someone said to me recently when I was trying to run out of the rain, it was like, if you don't let this water onto you, how will you grow? And I think that, I don't think it's a very profound thing to think about, but in the true spirit of lots of things happen, rain kind of sucks and gets in the way, but whatever season you're going through is going to allow you to grow. So welcome the water and let it weld you.
And on that note, thank you so, so, so much for coming on the podcast. I loved this chat.
Me too.
And gosh, you have to come back because I have questions that we just didn't touch on. Just ran out of time. But thank you, Tad.
Awesome. No, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please do hit the follow button and leave a rating and review. It makes such a difference, and it personally just means so much to me. Thank you.